This is January the 18th. This is World History. This video concerns itself with the Great Fear and the Reign of Terror. We cannot show it on this because it would be blocked, but this takes about 10 minutes. In addition to this, a reminder that we did a worksheet on Friday where we had to match a particular person from the Revolution or Napoleonic Wars with his brief description. Now that will be several questions that will be on your quiz. That also took some time, so today's going to be relatively short. Napoleon Bonaparte is going to come on the scene at the end of the Reign of Terror. Now, Bonaparte had been schooled in France's military schools. He had won several battles against the Austrians during the Reign of Terror. He was asked to join the Directory as First Consul. That would be the leader. And as First Consul, he will rule France like a dictator. Now, one of the first actions of Napoleon was to end the Reign of Terror. And he did this by basically turning the guns on anybody who was going to cause mischief. By doing this, he gained the support of the bourgeoisie. Remember that it was the Jacobians, which was a fringe group of the sans-culottes, which was a fringe group of the bourgeoisie who was causing most of the mischief. With the Jacobians now ended, the sans-culottes will calm down and France will return to a more peaceful time. It was under Napoleon that food was grown and transported to the areas that needed it the most. The depression that had been caused by the outbreak of the Reign of Terror will end, and for all of this, Napoleon will be given credit. Napoleon is going to call for many of the émigrés, those noblemen who left France during the Great Fear, to return. And when they returned, he is going to give them high government positions. Basically, they would be running the country just as they had run the country prior to the Estates Generale. Napoleon will reach an agreement with Rome. Now remember, the National Assembly had said in its Rights of Man that France would declare who were the bishops and who were the archbishops. And now Napoleon is saying to the Pope, oh, we want you to take that power over. Napoleon is going to call for a board of education. Napoleon believes that all French men, again, I must emphasize men, all French men should be educated. Now, of course, under the Rights of Man, it had made no distinction about men or women. Napoleon does. But lost in Napoleon's virtues were many of the liberties that had been won during the French Revolution. Here you see a very famous picture by David. He's one of the guys who we had to do a report on. And you can see where Napoleon is about ready to crown Josephine. Now, if you look behind Napoleon, this here is the Pope. And the Pope is looking on after Napoleon has crowned himself emperor. So, at the tail end of the 18th century, we went from the First Republic to the Directory to Napoleon declaring himself emperor. During the French Revolution, just about any country in Europe that was led by a monarch is going to declare war on France. Now remember, every country in Europe had a monarch, so that means that everybody is going up against the French. Napoleon believes that his first job as First Consul is to drive the foreign enemies out of France. Now, Napoleon is going to have great success. He's going to defeat many monarchs. He is going to defeat monarchs. He's going to install his own relatives to lead that country, and then he will trade with the new won land. Soon, France is beginning to take over all of Europe. Napoleon's wars are going to be studied for their tactics. Most militaries today use the tactics used by Napoleon to determine what armies do. Napoleon believed that he needed to see the battlefield, that if he could see the battlefield, then he could make decisions on the fly. Napoleon believed that battles were fluid, that they had to change with the changing of the tactics. Napoleon was not afraid to make changes as the battle dictated. Napoleon is going to use his infantry to make grand sweeps. Now, the edge of a position is called a flank, and if you want to hurt the enemy the most, it is on the flanks that you usually attack. Napoleon had been an artillery officer when he got out of military school, and Napoleon is going to use the artillery in a more offensive manner. Up until this time, cannon had always been used to break down walls or to break down infantry lines. Napoleon is going to use the cannons to attack sides of grand armies so that his infantry can attack the flanks. Now, there are only a few battles that I'm going to ask you to remember. And the first one we're going to worry about is the Battle of Trafalgar. Now, Trafalgar is a sea battle. It was fought off the coast of Spain. It pitted the French and Spanish Navy against the British Navy. Now, the British Navy was led by Horatio Nelson. And during this battle, Nelson is going to devise a plan that is going to defeat the French. This will ensure that Great Britain will control all of the ports along the Atlantic Ocean. Now, this is a very famous painting. It's called The Death of Nelson. And Nelson had been wounded badly during the Battle of Trafalgar, and he had been taken down to the lowest level of the ship. And there he could give orders, but he also died. Now, Nelson himself is going to be brought back to England, where he's going to be buried in Westminster Abbey. And one of the most popular places to gather in London today is where Nelson's statue is located at. Now, here is the map that you have. Now, remember, the letters stand for the capitals of various countries, and the X's represent battle sites. And here's Trafalgar. Here's the Battle of Trafalgar right down here. Now, I think this would probably be a pretty good place to stop, because I doubt if we have any time left in our class. If you are not with us today, make sure you get the correct answers for that worksheet that was passed out. Make sure that you got the map and you're starting to figure out what all the X's are about. I would imagine we'll probably get done with the Napoleonic Wars later this week. I'm thinking that our quiz will probably be, I'd say, very early next week, either Monday or Tuesday.